Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the GOP Josh Show. My name is GOP Josh, and I am your host. And I want to start this episode off with a video clip. Let's just play a clip.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
And I think that pretty much I think that pretty much describes, I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, the news of the week in a pretty big way. Some of the biggest news of the week, I should say. President Biden falling while getting on Air Force One. And I wouldn't usually comment on something like this because seeing an old person fall isn't something that you should laugh at. But this is a clip from the campaign trail, and I just want to play the clip.
Look at how he steps and look how I step. Watch how I run up ramps and he stumbles down ramps, okay? Come on.
That was talking about how President Trump couldn't walk down a ramp. This was before his first campaign rally of 2020, after COVID, of course. He can't walk down a ramp. And I'm sure you all remember his long speech at his first rally. If you are a Republican or you're a Trump supporter and you didn't watch that first rally back from COVID when he started having his rallies again, then, well, you wouldn't know that. But that was a pretty big speech that was a pretty big topic at his rally. And I just thought that clip was funny because of what happened on Air Force One. And of course, I need to talk about the biggest news was the shooting in Boulder, Colorado. First off, I don't want to glorify the murderer, whether he was white, African American, whoever he was. I don't want to glorify it no matter what race he was, because I don't think the killer should be glorified in any sense. In my main comment is people are calling for more gun control. Taking guns away from good people won't prevent bad people from getting them. And this is a tweet from Lauren Boebert. She said, Colorado already has universal background checks, a red flag gun control law, large capacity magazine bans, domestic violence gun laws, an extended background check period, a state database background check, gun-free zones. Killers like the killer name, I'm not going to say his name, do not follow the law. And that is completely and utterly true. If you want to get a gun, you're going to get a gun. Drugs are illegal in the majority of states, but people still get them, don't they? Exactly. You're not going to prevent people who want guns so bad from getting them, especially if they're a criminal. They don't follow the law anyway. What makes you think following gun laws is just going to happen all of a sudden? And this is something else with that. Everyone was saying, "Oh, this is a white man," and I'm not saying that being Muslim is a race because it's a religion, but this is a terrorist white man. People just assume that he was white because he was a terrorist or a domestic terrorist. He was Muslim. And this is a tweet from Amy Siskind. I don't know what she does. I don't know what's so important about her. 9:40 p.m. on March 22nd, which was the day the shooting happened, the shooter was taken into custody. In other words, it was almost certain he was a white man, because if he were a black or brown, he would be dead. March 23rd, 11:32, when his name was released. Let's mourn the victims, but not glorify the killer with the intention of having his name widely known. As soon as he had a not white sounding name, they couldn't talk about him anymore, because he's not a terrorist if he doesn't have a white sounding name, because it's not white. He didn't have white privilege, so they can't talk about him anymore. So I want to talk about a really funny article, and I don't have as much news this week because this really hasn't been a busy news week besides the shooter in Colorado, and I don't really want to get into that just because gun rights is one thing that you really can't change people's mind on. People are going to be anti-gun if they're anti-gun, and they're going to be pro-gun if they're pro-gun. You're not going to be able to change their mind on something, so I think that's a topic that I think everyone knows my opinion on just from my beliefs. Just because one bad person did something with a gun doesn't mean that every single good person with a gun should get their rights taken away. That's my opinion on it, and that's my general statement with all shootings. I don't think that you should be able to prevent people from what kind of guns they get, because the Constitution states, I don't have my little handy pocket Constitution with me, but it says that shall not be infringed. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And, well, they're trying to infringe on those rights. Biden even talked about signing executive orders, which is one of my articles here that I have lined up from the New York Post. President Biden is considering possible executive orders on gun control after the mass shooting that killed 10 in Boulder, Colorado. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Tuesday, "We are considering a range of levers, including working through legislation, including executive action," Psaki told reporters aboard Air Force One during a flight to Ohio. Psaki said that he, as vice president, was leading... he when he was vice president, was leading the effort on determining executive action that could be taken on gun safety measures. It's something that he was worked on, he's passionate about, he feels personally connected to, but there's an ongoing process, and I think we have to work on multiple channels at the same time. The White House considering orders that require background checks for ghost guns that can be manufactured at home without serial numbers, and a requirement that local cops be notified if someone fails an FBI background check to buy a gun from a registered dealer, according to recent reports. So another thing with this killer, he was supposedly an ISIS sympathizer, and he was on the FBI terrorist watch list. Like I said, I'll read this tweet again from Lauren Boebert. Colorado already has universal background checks, a red flag gun control law, large capacity magazine bans, domestic violence gun laws, an extended background check, period, state database background checks, gun-free zones, and obviously killers don't follow the law. So if these gun restrictions work, if these gun control laws work, then why didn't they work in Colorado? Because they don't work. Exactly. That's my entire point, is that gun controls doesn't work because people who want to kill someone are not going to follow the law anyway. And another thing with this statement, I just realized I have a lot more articles about this topic than I thought I did. Kamala Harris's niece, who got a cease and desist order from, or maybe not cease and desist, but was told by the White House to stop using her aunt's name for profit. Kamala Harris's niece tweets about a shooter being white, deletes, claiming she made an assumption. This is an article from the Daily Wire. Following the tragic shooting at a grocery store in Boulder, Colorado, Mina Harris, author and niece to Vice President Kamala Harris, rushed to post a tweet decrying the shooter being a violent white man, even though the suspected shooter turned out to be of Arabic descent. Yeah, he wasn't born in America. He was from Syria. He migrated here as a child. He was a citizen, as far as I'm aware. He's very anti-Trump. I don't know why the left is targeting him as a white man who loves Trump, who's a white supremacist. He did not like Trump. There's social media posts saying that, which are all deleted now, ironically. But there were social media posts of him being very anti-Trump and anti-everything that Trump did, pretty much. So, Caleb Hull put on Twitter, the Atlanta shooting was not even a week ago. Violent white men are... Mina Harris put this on Twitter, and a screenshot was captured by a reporter. The Atlanta shooting was not even a week ago. Violent white men are the greatest terrorist threat to our country. She wrote in a not deleted post. Apparently growing irritated with the pushback over her false tweet, Harris complained on Twitter Monday, "Insecure men getting defensive about this. Oh my goodness, y'all are so fragile." You literally lied about his race, and I think this might be a deleted tweet by now. Nope, not a deleted tweet. Harris eventually deleted the viral post, which was claiming that he was a white man, and offered a snarky response to her mistake. Harris said that she thought the shooter was white because he was taken into custody alive. Oh, because a black man has never been taken into custody alive. A person of color has never been taken into custody alive. She also claimed the majority of mass shootings in the U.S. are carried out by black or white men. Under the previous tweet about the suspect in the Boulder shooting, Harris wrote, "I made an assumption based on his being taken into custody alive and the fact that the majority of mass shootings in the U.S. are carried out by white men." After her rush to talk about the shooter's identity when she incorrectly thought he was a white man, Harris ironically retweeted posts from left-wing Rep. Ilhan Omar complaining about the focus on the shooter's identity. So, the entire time these Atlanta shootings were being talked about, and I don't want to talk about this because I haven't been following them nearly as much as I should be, and I don't know all the facts to that one. This Boulder shooting has pretty much been everything everyone's talking about. But pretty much what I know is that he was a white man. He was supposedly a white supremacist, even though he killed 2 white men in a spree. He would have definitely tried not to if that was the case. And he even said that his motives were not race-based. But since the shooter's not a white man, we can't talk about his race. So, Ilhan Omar put on Twitter, "So he's Muslim is trending. Did I miss he's Christian trending for last week's Atlanta mass murderer?" In another tweet from Omar, which was also retweeted by Mina Harris, the Democrat wrote, "The shooter's race or ethnicity seems front and center when they aren't white. Otherwise, it's just a mentally ill young man having a bad day." That was taken out of quote by Aaron Rupert, who is a reporter with he's an activist with Vox. The shooter's race ethnicity seem to be front and center when they're not white. Otherwise, just a mentally ill young man having a bad day. Narrative driver response to awful crimes committed against innocent people. Pay attention to these response and who is targeted. The 21-year-old shooter suspect killed 10, including one police officer. There are some. This is something else about his motive from a Daily Wire article. While his Arabic name may prompt new assumptions about his motive, members of his family have told the Daily Beast that the suspect suffered from mental illness. He was very antisocial and paranoid. The suspect's brother said that in high school, the suspect claimed he was being chased. Someone is behind him. Someone is looking for him. When he was having lunch with my sister in a restaurant, he said, people are in the parking lot. They were looking for me. She went out and there was no one. We didn't know what was going on in his head. It was not at all a political statement. It was a mental illness, he told the Daily Beast. The guy used to get bullied a lot in high school. He was an outgoing kid, but after he went to high school and got bullied a lot, he started becoming antisocial. So the suspect was born in Syria, but reportedly spent most of his life in the United States. Boulder police officials said during a Tuesday press conference. The suspect's profile on Facebook said he was born in Syria in 1999 and came to the U.S. in 2002. He also posted information rebuking former President Donald Trump and discussed his history as a high school wrestler. So I just thought the whole point of that article was to talk about how Mina Harris was assuming his race because he was a white man and he was taken alive. You cannot tell me that there's never been a person of color, a person who isn't white, that was taken alive and when they were arrested. I know that for a fact. Because there were a lot of people who were sent to death row that the left was on Twitter saying, oh, he only murdered 2 people and burned them alive in their car. Send him free. Don't give him the death penalty. And I am personally anti-death penalty. But you can't be anti-death penalty and pro-choice at the same time. That just doesn't make any sense. And that's not where I'm trying to get with this, but I'm trying to highlight the fact that just because he was taken into custody alive does not mean he was a white man. And this, frankly, misleading post has been going around social media. I don't have it where I'm going to Google it real quick to see if I can bring it up. But it's been going around Instagram a lot lately. And it's just, I don't think it's, well, accurate. My personal opinion was that it wasn't accurate. But they pointed out times that white people were arrested and black people were killed by the police was the whole point of the post. Or people of color. I'm being insensitive by calling them black people. Even though that's been their name for however many years now. And that's what I'm used to, well, frankly saying. But this post is pretty much saying, oh, well, they were white, so they were taken into custody, but they were black, so they were killed. But some of them weren't even suspects, like Breonna Taylor. She shot at the police, or her boyfriend shot at the police, so they're going to shoot back. It's just a misleading post. I need to take a break, so I will try to find that post during the break, but I'll be right back. Did you know the GOP Josh Show is available wherever you get your podcasts? That includes Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, and Stitcher, as well as iHeartRadio and YouTube. Just search the GOP Josh Show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is GOP_Josh, and my Twitter is GOPJosh20. Now, back to the show. Welcome back. This is the GOP Josh Show. Or my name is GOP Josh. You're listening to the GOP Josh Show is what I meant to say, but it didn't come out that way. So I found that Instagram post, and it has Dylan Roof, which we all know what he did, which is terrible. He was heavily armed and he was arrested. George Floyd was unarmed and murdered. Well, George Floyd was resisting arrest after using a counterfeit $20 bill, not to mention that he was very, very messed up, per se. And they have Breonna Taylor being unarmed and some other faces of the Black Lives Matter movement that I don't actually know the story from. But posts like these are misleading. And I'm not saying they're misleading because they're untrue, But they're misleading because they're not putting the story behind all of them. They only have a 500 by 500 little page to put them on, or a little post to put them on, so they're not telling the full story. And, well, frankly, a lot of these I don't think should be compared. Breonna Taylor shot at the police. Dylann Roof did not. And the way the left has their narratives is that they will take whatever is convenient to them, whatever facts are convenient to them, and blow them out of proportion. Like I said, I don't know all the stories behind all of these photos, but I know that you can't say that they aren't resisting arrest, because if they are resisting arrest, police have they are allowed to use force to try to get them, well, to be arrested. And the manipulation of these stories in the mainstream media, if the Boulder shooter was a white man, a white Christian man, I should say, or just a white atheist man, if he wasn't Muslim, this story would still be the number one trending on Twitter. There would be riots in the street for Black Lives Matter. And the response to this wouldn't have paused, pretty much. Now, Caleb Hull's a reporter, or he may be an activist, but a conservative activist with just a list of people lying about how he was a white man, how white supremacist domestic terrorism is a tweet here, to relaxing, to just be worried about being killed by an invisible virus instead of literally any slightly inconvenienced white man with a gun. Talking about how they're all white. Even Mina Harris, the Atlanta shooting was not even a week ago. Violent white men are the greatest terrorists in our country, like I talked about earlier in the program. We really need to ban angry white guys with guns, white men going on shooting sprees, yada, yada, yada. You know the narrative. And the narrative isn't even true. Ever since the Atlanta shooting, there's been Asian Lives Matter protests, yet literally a year ago, they were allowed to be discriminated against, and they're still allowed to be discriminated against when trying to get into college because they are not black, or they're not a person of color that is a dark skin tone. They're literally legally allowed to be discriminated against trying to get into college. It's called affirmative action. Google it. White and Asian people are allowed to be discriminated in because they are not a person of color, or I'm using their terms because I don't want to be canceled, but I honestly don't care if I'm canceled or not, but because they're not a person of color, they're allowed to be discriminated against in the education system, and I believe that is completely and utterly. That's what the Asian Lives Matter protests and the Asian Lives Matter posts should be focused on, is the fact that they are being prevented from going to college because of their race. That is what the Asian Lives Matter protest should be focused on, not one man who killed 8 people, which I'm completely against, but one man who killed 8 people, 2 of them were white people, which means he wasn't a white supremacist, or he wasn't targeting Asian people. He even said it wasn't racially motivated, but that doesn't matter to the left. The facts of the matter the facts do not matter to the left. Whatever is a slight convenience for them politically is what matters. It doesn't matter if someone was to, I don't know, literally come out and say that their terrorism wasn't due to racism. It doesn't matter. It does not matter in a Joe Biden America, in a Democrat-controlled America. It doesn't matter whether the person was white. It doesn't matter whether the person was a person of color. It doesn't matter. Because if something fits their narrative, they will spin it to fit their narrative. There's still people calling the terrorist from Syria a white man. It's not true. He's Middle Eastern. He's Muslim. But because the facts do not line up with their reality, do not line up with their political motives, they're not going to be talked about. I want to switch gears here because I'm getting a little too upset for an episode. So, Mike Lindell, I think he's in the news every week at this point, is working on launching a social media site, and it is called Frank. I thought it was not supposed to be called Frank earlier. This is an article from Business Insider. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, the Trump ally who pushed voter fraud conspiracy theories, has just launched a first glimpse at his new social media site. Like I said, this isn't my article, that is theirs. It is frankspeech.com is the URL. Lindell previously told insiders, an insider from Business Insider, in early March the site would be called Vocal, V-O-C-L, but Frank is what he changed it to, the voice of free speech. And I just want to read what the website says. Necessity is the mother of invention. The free speech platform Frank is just that. Political correctness has caused many people to be shamed, marginalized, and characterized for speaking forth truth. In part, the very definition of frank is to be forthright and sincere in your expression. What could be more American than that? It is from this perspective that the platform was named Frank. The world watched as perhaps the most visible and vocal CEO in America. Mike Lindell became the victim of cancel culture when he began to express his views on the matters that the liberal media and big tech deemed to be politically incorrect. Free speech is one of the hallmarks of our constitutional republic, as enshrined in the Bill of Rights. It is no coincidence the nation that has free speech also have a free enterprise system and freedom of religion. Inversely, nations that deny free speech tread upon the free enterprise system and freedom of religion. Americans want to remain free. Americans are craving news and information that is not filled through the radical worldview of today's liberal media, intellectua, or deep state actors. Frank, the voice of free speech, will be the platform for Americans who want to defend life, liberty, and all freedoms that have marked America as the longest-running constitutional republic in the history of the world. On the platform, you'll find a home where you can post videos, live stream television, distribute news and information, and find community and fellowship with like-minded Americans. Frank will be a home for major influencers to micro-influencers to average Americans wanting to share the constitutional right of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. We hope you will join our community and let freedom ring. Coming soon. The site's tagline calls it the voice of free speech. This is back to the Insider article. Lindell previously told Daily that the site would be all about being able to be vocal again and not walking on eggshells. And I appreciate that. I'm afraid every time I go on Twitter that I'm just going to get the ban hammer out of nowhere because I follow conservative accounts. I'm not the largest conservative account. I'm actually growing fairly decently on Twitter. I really appreciate all the support lately. And 128 followers. I'm growing. I'm growing, and I really appreciate all the support lately on all my social media platforms. But yeah, he told Daily that he planned to be the site's CEO and told Eric Metaxas show that he had invested millions of dollars. He claimed that he has his own servers, his YouTube channel, Twitter altogether. Reverse engineered when influencers join, they'll have a platform where all the people down here follow them instantly. That's kind of an odd way to run a social media platform, but it's a way for people to smaller to grow their following. And I will, if you can actually upload videos like you can on YouTube, I will be uploading this podcast in video form. Well, my video podcast is just a static cover art, but will be uploaded to Frank if that is an option on day one. So one last story I want to talk about is Candace Owens has been in the news. She started her own show at the Daily Wire, and well, the Daily Wire is covering this article too. Democrat sends a photo of a KKK hood to Candace Owens. Twitter defends the post, saying it's not against their TOS, and Owens is taking the action on her own. Failed Democratic candidate William O'Mara sent an image of a Klansman hood via Twitter to Daily Wire host Candace Owens, a black woman. When the hood image was reported to Twitter, the tech platform said the image did not violate their rules. Now, if that was dropped on her doorstep, that would be against state and federal laws. That would be a hate crime. After Twitter kept the post up and O'Mara defending his tweet, Owens announced her intention to file a police report against the Democrat, noting that she's done with you racist Democrats. O'Mara's tweet came in response to a post from Owens criticizing left-wing activist groups. The number one violent offenders against black people are other black people. The number one violent offenders against Asian Americans are also black people, Owens posted Monday. But both Black Lives Matter and Asian Lives Matter are campaigns dedicated to stopping out white supremacy because clown world. O'Mara captioning a photo of the KKK hood, wrote, "Yikes, you may have dropped this." After this tweet was reported, Twitter said their rules were not violated. She said, "For everyone who is suing Twitter for clear-cut bias, they have written to me knowing that sending a Klansman hood to black people does not violate any of their rules." Owens posted, captioning a screenshot of Twitter's message and O'Mara's tweet. "Racism is okay on this platform. Thanks, Twitter safety," Owens added. I'm not gonna put the hood on the screen for my listeners at home that are listening on YouTube because, well, frankly, I'll probably get banished on YouTube. I'm going to put it anyway. I don't really care. But this is the tweet for all of you who haven't seen it. William O'Mara for Congress right there. There's the picture. No longer being shown. Hopefully YouTube doesn't give me the ban hammer for that. A Twitter user told Owens to send the tweet from O'Mara to the FBI. Yeah, and to my lawyer. This is blatantly racist and discriminatory. Twitter has locked my account in the past for saying things that people should be opening their stores during the lockdown. But claims on hoods are totally in their community standards. When criticized for sending the image of a KKK hood to a black woman, O'Mara defended the post and accused Owens of being a paid propagandist. I tweeted to someone making straight-up white supremacist arguments to exploit a fragile white male argument. Candace is a paid propagandist and constantly recycles the same tropes we've seen work on audience for 2 centuries. She said the factual statement. She said a very factual statement. And because she said a statement that is factual in a tweet, she's a white supremacist. She's a black woman in America that is a white supremacist. Did I hear that right? A black woman in America is now a white supremacist all of a sudden. I don't think I heard that right, to be completely honest with you. Because the Democrat also responded to Owens' post concerning Twitter response. Fascinating. How is it a threat to suggest your arguments suit that mask? Are you saying no person of color makes white supremacist arguments? It is granted a harsh way to highlight the problem, but the issue lies with your violent rhetoric, not mine. I just got off the phone. This is a tweet from Candace Owens. I just got off the phone with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Guess who's filing a police report against you in your little Klansman act that you keep defending? I am done with your racist Democrats thinking you can do and say whatever you want to black conservatives. Might not be a crime on Twitter, but guess what? It's a crime in the real world. You should be ashamed, Twitter safety, for allowing this to fly. I believe that is 100 complete. What Candace Owens is doing is 100% correct. I think she's suing Cardi B. She's suing, or she's filing a police report to this individual. She has a show on the Daily Wire. Candace Owens is a very successful person in America. She just had a child. She's married. Very successful. So props to Candace Owens, to be completely honest. She's been in this fight. She's fought very hard for very long. It's finally starting to pay off. And so, well, that brings me to the end of today's episode. I don't know if it'll hit my 30-minute hopeful quota or not because of how, well, there's been a lot of news this week, but a lot of news about topics that I really don't care if I cover or not. Let me make sure everything on my sheet is covered. Last week, I missed out on a few topics I want to talk about, but they're now outdated, so they're not going to talk about them anymore. Yep, my whole sheet's completed. Well, thank you for listening to today's episode. I didn't plug my social medias at the beginning like I normally do, so my Twitter is GOPJosh20. My Instagram is GOP_Josh. And I hope you guys have a great week. See you guys next week.